Okay, we had some technical difficulties, and I'm not sure how long this is going to stay. So I apologize for any of you who were watching and got cut off. But this is part two of our reaction to Harry's interview on Anderson Cooper tonight, where he is talking about his book Spare and he's giving some information. We got so far to talk about his experience with his mother's death, his relationship with his brother, and I'm just going to pretty much go through a couple more slides and call it a night. I just didn't want to leave you guys hanging for those of you who were watching with, you were paying attention. So just as a review, Harry came off really, really well in this presentation, in his interview. He was likable, he was interesting. However, we got to this point where we were talking about Diana's death, and it was very, very tragic, very, very sad. He was saying that he wasn't convinced that the investigation was what he wanted it to be, and neither was his brother, although there's nothing they can really do about it at this point. So I am going to continue on. I guess this is considered part two, and share with you what we know regarding the Invictus Games. And Harry with Afghanistan, because it sounds like it should just be a memoir where everybody's just getting a little upset because of what seems petty, like the fact that Megan got upset because Kate grimaced when she asked her to borrow lip gloss. I mean, these are petty things. However, Harry overshares. He doesn't know when to stop. And so what he did was he started sharing about his experience in Afghanistan. So if you want to see what else I said about the earlier part of the interview, just go to part one. But he shares about Afghanistan, and he says it was like a good release. He could just be a guy. He didn't have the press over him. He could just get to work. He could be physical. And he said that that was actually really great for him. But he did mention in his book the number of people that he was responsible for in Afghanistan for killing. And now what's happening is that the press and soldiers and colonels and major generals are saying the following about Harry and about what he is, what he has confessed, because Harry's pride and joy is this Invictus Games that he has, which is for disabled veterans of the war and military. And there's this article, there's an article that says military veterans warn Invictus Games is at risk of terror attack after Harry's revealed he killed 25 Taliban fighters in Afghanistan as grieving father of soldier who served with Duke condemns claims as a terrible mistake. So what they are saying now is that the Invictus Game could be under threat of terror attacks following Prince Harry's boast that he killed 25 Taliban fighters. This is in the Daily Mail. Admiral Lord West, former head of the Navy, told the Sunday Mirror the Invictus Games is very much labeled to him. And so I would have thought the threat level there would definitely be higher. There will be serious security issues because of what he said. The Taliban will be reading it thinking that there's this prince calling us all chess pieces. He said, just sort of to clarify what he said, Harry basically said, I really didn't feel any pride with it, nor did I feel dissatisfaction. I just saw it as a job I needed to do and chess pieces to be pulled off the board, which was in many ways very insensitive. And so because he said that, the Taliban responded in saying that it was really an awful thing to say. It says, and there will be a lot of people, I am sure, in Islamic State and other terrorist organizations who will think this is something which should be avenged. So, and then he goes on to say he's the founder of the Invictus Games. It's an international sporting competition for wounded military veterans that was launched in 2014. And the next competition is set in Dusseldorf, Germany in September, but military experts say extra measures would likely need to be taken place. So my point in bringing this up right now is that, this is not to be minimized. Harry's desire and need to express himself is dangerous. So, for example, Ronald Reagan's daughter, Patty Davis, wrote a memoir of her own regarding Reagan in, I don't know, it was like years ago, but she says In an op-ed written in the New York Times, Davis cautioned the Duke of Sussex to be judicious with his candor. She says, my justification in writing a book I now wish I hadn't written was very similar to what I understand to be Harry's reasoning. I wanted to tell the truth. I wanted to set the record straight. Naively, I thought if I put my own feelings and my own truth out there for the world to read, my family might also come to understand me better. Davis's book on the Reagan family, Family Secrets, was published in 1993, so long ago, even before Diana passed away. During the early stages of my father's Alzheimer's, when he had lucid moments, I apologized to him. So she's saying, Harry, please be careful, because years later, you are going to regret, you are really going to regret what you've said, and it's going to come back to get you. He was, she said, I thought of that moment when I read that Prince Harry in his new memoir wrote about his father, King Charles, getting between his battling sons and saying, please, boys, don't make my final years a misery. Time is an unpredictable thing, she says. I had the gift of time with my father, which allowed me to apologize, even though a disease hovered between us and clouded our communication. King Charles's world reveal a man who is aware of his mortality and who would like his offspring to be aware of it as well. So basically, she's warning him, and Harry is just putting it all out there for everybody to see, irregardless of, you know, the consequences, actually. So he goes on to say that he's done drugs. He says that it actually helped him under supervision to take psychedelics, which obviously none of us recommend. But again, he said he needed to cry. He would sit there watching shows, watching videos of his mother, and still not able to cry. And finally, he had breakthrough. So then he goes on to say that Camilla, like, they did not want the king to marry Camilla. They didn't think it was necessary, and it would be more harm than good. And then this is probably one of the most scathing things he says in this interview, because we know so much already from his book. He says, Camilla sacrificed me on her personal tabloid altar. Whoa. Because he was saying that she used the media in a dangerous way, that she was a very dangerous woman. And it was something that, and Anderson was like, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, she was campaigning to be less dangerous, and you know, because the press had so much on her and kept talking about her. So then he moves on to say that the family was really uneasy with Meghan, even though we've heard from the press that they weren't uneasy, and they actually were very welcoming. They've even admitted that in the past. And then he talks about this fight with his brother. And then they move forward to talk about how they left the royal family, and they had this interview with Oprah, and then obviously Netflix and everything. They left the press, they left their jobs over there. Will you ever come back? And he's like, no, I'm not talking to my father. I'm not talking to my brother. And then Anderson asks him, what would you renounce your titles? And he says, what difference would that even make? I thought that was interesting, because he was very vague and very point blank. Like, what difference would that make? He didn't say, oh, we would renounce it. So in a nutshell, and then he goes on to talk about his grandmother's death. And he says that he was not invited to get on the plane with everybody else, and that he had to just go on his own, and he did get to go. And so he's just basically, he said he was happy for her. And Anderson says, did you speak to Will? He's like, no. Did you speak with your dad? No. Are you speaking to him? No, but I'd love to be talking to them. Oh my gosh. So that was basically the interview. The interview was not that bad. By the way, I still apologize about this tech issue, but I was able to figure it out and put it in 2 parts. It was a whole blackout here. In a nutshell, I think what is going on is that he's just trying to express himself at all costs. And that's a value of his. Say whatever you think, whenever you want, because for so many years I wasn't able to. The only problem is, because he's not experienced with being able to just say what you want at any time you want, having the freedom to do that. He has not been given any kind of coaching. Like, what don't you say? What shouldn't you say? Why not appeal to some people that may know a little bit about the culture of the UK and the culture of America, and not just like put it all out there? Why doesn't some business, why doesn't he have a publicist or an attorney even that comes in between him and his contracts with Netflix, his contract with his book? Why didn't he read some of those things and have somebody brilliant, doesn't even require brilliance, to look at that part with Afghanistan and say, no, that is bad. You said you wanted to leave the UK because you were concerned about your safety, and now you're saying something that's going to make you more of a target. So, the interview was fine, but the book and all of the stuff that's going on, I usually do history content, but this has been very interesting to me because it ties into history and it ties into like a total shift of this monarchy. There's a lot we could say about the monarchy as well. There's a lot we could say about the royal family, but right now we're focusing on Harry and Meghan and what they're bringing out. A good part of this would be that, okay, he's bringing to light a lot of things that maybe should be discussed. It's interesting and kind of entertaining for many of us. It's sort of like watching a real life, soap opera. So, okay, this was part 2. I apologize for this tech issue. I am not plugged into a wall. Everywhere here in Orlando, we lost our internet for like 20 minutes. I was able to get back on. Watch part 1 if you are coming in, and please subscribe to Hot for History. Like my videos. I do a lot of shorts on history that your history teacher, I bet, never ever taught you. And we will be coming back frequently with longer form videos, and we will be talking about the book and doing a book series. And have a great night. Thank you.